everyone, welcome to the 375th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and your co-host,
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a lot to talk about today, but first I'm going to apologize for any weird sounds because, once again, y'all, I am quarantining, this time for my teenager who got COVID on a class trip to Puerto Rico. And so now I'm in Puerto Rico in a hotel room.
Hola!
Yay!
Well, you know what? We've had almost 3 years of no vacations, and you've gotten 2 in the past month. So, hey for you.
Yay! I am not thrilled, but that's okay. Let's get started. This week's show is jam-packed, actually, with lots of good stuff. We're going to be talking about WWDC and HomeKit and Matter. We're also going to be talking about Insteon, whose servers appear to be back from the dead. Samsung has a new SmartThings app coming. Microsoft and Procter & Gamble got together for some digital manufacturing love, and we'll talk about that. We've also got some ransomware news and a free OT security service for some businesses. Plus, you know how I love RF sensing. One of my companies in this area has just raised a lot of money. And also on the chip side, ARM has introduced a new image signal processor. So we'll talk a little bit about all of that. And Arduino raised a lot of money. So I've got the CEO of Arduino, Fabio Violente, who is on the show talking about what Arduino is going to do with the 32 million USD that it raised. We're also going to hear from a new sponsor, Nordic Semiconductor. But first, also from Scandinavia, we've got another sponsor. This week's sponsor is WirePass. WirePass is on a mission to set a new standard in IoT. They believe in infinitely scalable connectivity software that never fails, and they concentrate on large industrial applications. WirePass thinks it should be affordable. That's their mission. WirePass is the future of enterprise IoT. And with a recent 5G standard update, they've got a chance to change the IoT in a non-cellular way. You can learn more at wirepass.com. That's WirePass.com. All right, this week, WWDC. And we actually got a lot of HomeKit news. So, Kevin, why don't you start by unpacking it for us, since you're our HomeKit user?
Yes, that was not surprising that Apple kind of put HomeKit front and center in their presentation. It was before a lot of the new MacBook hardware, their M2 chip, and all the other fun stuff they talked about. Early on in the hour and a half or 2 hour presentation, they came up with a spiel on Matter, talking about how it's going to bring all your devices together and it'll help Apple or HomeKit users, I should say, because you'll have more choice. And that's really been one of the sticking points, at least early on for me. HomeKit's been the last platform I tried, actually, out of all the ecosystems. And I've tried, 8, 9 of them. It's been the last one because I just couldn't find the devices that I wanted in my home that were HomeKit compatible. And I didn't want to mishmash different things together. You can certainly do that, with Home Assistant and such. But regardless, the big deal here is that this is actually, yes, good for HomeKit people, but Matter itself is obviously good for everyone. And it's interesting how Apple positioned their involvement with Matter. I'm going to just read a quote from Corey Wang, producer, human interface at Apple. She's the one who gave the Matter discussion. And to ensure we stayed true to our values, we contributed HomeKit, our smart home framework, as the foundation of this new standard, meaning Matter. So it's built on the same core principles and maintains the highest level of security. And when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, come on, Matter's been built by Amazon, Google, Samsung, and 100, 200 different other companies. But then I chatted with Stacey and she brought me back to earth. And to be honest, a lot of Matter is either influenced directly or indirectly by HomeKit. You had pointed out QR code provisioning, for example, which has always been one of the
That's the easiest way to get a device online. When Apple came up with that, we were like, yeah.
It's so simple. That's why people pretty much don't complain, or at least don't complain as much about adding devices to their smart homes if they are running HomeKit. They've got the security features that was already built in from way back. In fact, HomeKit originally had hardware security requirements, Apple relented on that because a lot of vendors didn't want to add to the cost and the complexity. So now it's a software requirement.
And honestly, that's why there weren't as many HomeKit devices. It's because you had to get that MFI chip in there.
Exactly.
And the other thing is that Matter has cloud components, but it's focused on local connectivity inside the home for resiliency, for latency, all that good stuff. But HomeKit has always been local because of Apple does really think highly of the user and security. So in Google and Amazon, they went more for a cloud-based integration, which again makes total sense given their DNA. I feel like Apple's being a little disingenuous, kind of like I said it wasn't putting lipstick on a pig, but it was probably putting a high gloss on the lipstick, right?
Right.
Or maybe a fancy filter on a supermodel, just because, yes, Apple did contribute a lot in philosophy and in the user experience, but the other companies did contribute things too. It's not solely Apple. And I think you're right. It's going to be Matter will help drive a HomeKit-like experience for hopefully all users of the smart home, which I think we could all get behind. So
I think that's correct. I mean, we have to verify that when we can, but yes.
Yeah. Matter still won't be out until the fall, hopefully still of this year. And we'll see, a lot of devices, a lot of the big vendors have already said their devices are going to be upgraded. So we've got a list of some of the devices, but we won't know really until I bet the holidays, how it's going to play out and how the Matter lived experience will be.
You and I and the people in the industry may get an earlier take on that because we get review units and so on. So it's very possible and hopeful, actually, that we do get Matter certified devices kind of before they go on sale and get a feel for that, because that's going to help people understand what they're getting with Matter. Should they have waited for Matter? Should they not wait for Matter? And is it really all it cracked up to be?
Yeah, and we can do how-to posts. Oh, the how-to posts. Kevin, Are we excited? Okay, one of the things, though, that Matter is poised to do, which because of the local control, it's the local control in the multi-admin feature, which means that other controllers will be able to control Matter-certified devices. This is going to prevent problems like, y'all remember Insteon back in mid-April? Insteon shut down its servers, and a lot of people's Insteon smart home platforms, they work still locally in the house.
Yes.
But they didn't connect back to the cloud or the app. And the cloud integrations broke and people were sad and there was no warning of this. Well, in a similar vein, on Tuesday night this week, or Tuesday afternoon of this week, people's Insteon servers came back on. Again, with no warning.
And no communication even still yet as the time we're recording this podcast. How long they'll stay up and running, who is running them? Nothing. Zippo.
All right, y'all. They have started hammering above my head. I have no place else to do this. I am so sorry.
In another room. They're not hammering Stacy's head.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
It feels the same. Anyway, so we're going to carry on. I apologize for the noise. I don't know what to tell y'all other than I'm miserable. Now y'all are miserable. I don't like making people miserable.
Is it siesta time already?
Okay. So moving right along, the reason the servers are back online is because someone has purchased the Insteon IP, but we don't know who. It is likely they will continue to stay online, and I hear that the person who purchased it is trustworthy and people should feel more confident, but that's all I know. And it
sounds like me, but it wasn't me.
It wasn't Kevin.
The Insteon app has been pulled from all the app stores. So hopefully you didn't delete it, because it's hard to get it back right now. There are sources that I'm not going to get into. You do your own digging there. I would say back up your server if you couldn't before. Do it.
Yeah, and some people may have to restart, reboot their server for it to come back online, but apparently it's there. So yay!
No, that's great, because so many people lately have been asking us what do I switch to, and we've been telling them, and now I kind of feel foolish, like I should say,
you should
just
never
wait.
It was down for 55 days and we had no guarantees, and we still don't have any guarantees. Someone they may charge people for it, which,
yes.
who knows? All right. In other news, Samsung
Yes, Samsung is doing a little bit of app consolidation, which actually Apple showed off as well at WWDC. You're going to see a lot more of these smart home apps consolidating and adding more types of devices, groups of devices, categories of devices, all in support of Matter. That's what Samsung is doing. It's coming out later this month in 97 countries, this software update. It's called Smart Things Home Life, and it's promising a more holistic smart home experience. And just based on the one screenshot I can see, because the app's not out yet, we haven't tried it yet, I would agree with that. And this is a smart thing for Samsung out of all the companies to do, because Samsung sells a lot of appliances, TVs, and other things that can be added to the home, unlike an Apple or a Google or whoever. So you'll have smart things cooking, where you can find recipes, auto set your appliances, manage shopping lists. You'll have smart things energy, clothing care, pet care, home care, and air care. All things that you might have been doing in different places or even different apps. With a smart things system, it looks like you'll be able to do it all within one, which is the way it should be. I mean, you have
They
one
promised
home.
us that all the way back in the day, so it
Promises,
feels good.
promises.
I know.
Yeah. So we'll get a look at the app once it arrives. We don't have it yet. It's just not out yet.
Yeah, and I actually purchased the latest Smart Things hub. It's not from Smart Things, it's from AOTech, but my goal was to get it up and operational and it's been a couple of years since I've run Smart Things on the regular, and I thought, hey, let's try it. But I haven't been home for, like a month now, so
Yeah.
it's going to happen one day.
Honestly, I was an early Smart Things user, got away from it. And then when the Smart Things Wi-Fi routers came out with a Smart Things hub built in, I took a second look, and that was 3 or 4 years after the original look, and it was so much better. So I'd be curious to see what you think the second time around.
Yeah, I'm excited. So
are the hammerers.
So big industrial IoT news or big corporate partnership news. Procter & Gamble and Microsoft are going to be working together. It is a multi-year collaboration. There's leveraging, there's end-to-end solutions, but basically P&G is going to use Microsoft's cloud and some of their AI stuff for industrial manufacturing, probably the digital twin stuff as well. And this is a big deal for Microsoft. This is the kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? It's the kind of flagship customer that, you'd be like, yay. And I will say that Microsoft has been doing well with industrial and enterprise customers for a while. And it's because that's their DNA. And a lot of these companies already have been working with Microsoft. So they're like, okay, now you can do machine vision. Now you can do edge computing. Now you can do IoT core. Bring it. But Amazon is launching very similar features and is pushing hard. And Amazon has deals with like Volkswagen. And I feel like other companies that I should know off the top of my head.
And just to put this in perspective for, say, what this all means, I love the pilot project they did using their algorithms, ML, and predictive analysis with the Azure platform. In a pilot, P&G was able to better predict finished paper towel sheet lengths. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but seriously, I mean, if you're wasting paper and you're wasting manufacturing time because you're not cutting the right lengths, you might have to scrap a whole production run. It sounds dumb, but these little things add up, and that's what the benefits are.
Yeah, and I should actually do a point. I wrote about this in the newsletter, I feel like a while ago, but maybe I didn't. I can't remember anything now. But you're going to see in a lot of these announcements coming forward in the next year or so, it used to be the emphasis was on ROI and optimization. Now you're going to see it focused on efficiencies and sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
And these are basically the same thing. It's just there's going to be a little bit more of a gloss on sustainability because of where we are with climate change, because of resource intensity, using resources, all of that. So I just want to draw your attention to that, because if you're reading these things, you're going to be like, oh, this is so amazing and good for the environment. I was like, yeah, it is. And I'm glad that we're doing a focus there. But I will say that sustainability and this sort of sustainability is really just efficiency, which is good for ROI. Yay.
And aren't you glad I used the paper towel pilot instead of the diaper project that they also mentioned?
I liked the diaper project.
I did too. But I mean, not everybody uses diapers, but everybody uses paper towels.
Well, some people don't. Some people buy those little Swedish washcloths. And
yes.
I haven't gotten there, but I feel bad about not doing it. Okay. So big deal there. In other industrial news, there is new ransomware in the IoT world. Forescout is the research company that came up with this. or rather, I shouldn't say come up with this, discovered this. They call it ransomware for IoT, or R4IoT. This is ransomware that exploits an IoT device to get into the network and move through it and go into the OT, the operational technology network. This is everybody's favorite fear. It's not awesome, because this way you can have the ransomware, which usually just shuts down your IT operations or, kind of locks up your data. But now they're saying, holy cow, through this, we can go into your IT network, make it to the OT network, and actually affect physical production, which sucks.
Yeah, or they could use the compute power in the OT side to deploy crypto miners, it says. And of course, DOS attacks against those.
Your industrial process controllers doing crypto mining. Oh my gosh, that's inefficient, but I guess if it's not your stuff,
if you're not paying
care.
for it, if you're getting the rewards of the mining and you're not paying for the compute and energy, woohoo, what a deal.
But this is bad news, but there is good news. Dragos, who is an industrial control systems security company, they actually said that they are going to make their OT Cyber Emergency Readiness Team, or OT CERT, available to bunches of new companies. And those companies are companies in the small to medium-sized business space, which really and this is like small manufacturing facilities. And there's tons of these all over the US, and they're important. They're making little bits and bobs or highly customized components for industrial parties. And if they go down, that's going to cause supply chain issues that go throughout the supply chain. I'm really excited to see this. It also will help bigger companies like the Johnson Controls, the Rockwell Automations, Jabil, anybody who deals with these companies as a partner. With supply chain attacks, you've got to really worry about your partners. And this will help kind of plug that gap. And they'll do it in a way that is cost effective and helpful for these companies that otherwise couldn't really afford or put the level of expertise at this that they probably should. So, yay! That's good news. All right. In other news, Vire. It's an Israeli company that makes a radar sensor device at 60 gigahertz. And they started out doing something for fall detection. They're also looking at putting their radars in cars inside the vehicle so it can detect things like, is there a baby in the carrier in the back seat? Or, is there someone in the front seat? So I love these use cases. Actually, the baby in the backseat or even like impaired driving, that's actually something that's part of the most recent infrastructure bill. So automotive makers are having to do this anyway. So it makes sense that Vire is raising money to kind of meet that demand.
Yeah, this has been an interesting company because I know even way back at GigaOM, we talked about Vire because they started in 2011. And originally, the sensors were meant to be used as an effective alternative to mammograms. So they were going to use these to screen for breast cancer. But I don't want to say pivoted, they've just found new uses for the technology. Like they have the Wallabot, which is the stud finder and the wall finder thing. They actually signed a deal just last year with Piaggio, which is the company that makes Vespa scooters for rider assistance systems with the imaging chip. And now they're getting into obviously a massive market with radar in cars, inside the vehicles and such. So it's been interesting to watch them grow and change for the last decade, quite honestly.
Yeah. And again, RF sensing for the win. Woo! Much more fine-grained resolution, a lot of detail. Everyone should love it.
Yes, now it's 4D sensing. 4D imaging, they say.
4D.
So
and the fourth dimension is time.
I suppose there was a baby in that seat.
All right. Other news, ARM. ARM has a new image signal processor for computer vision and IoT and embedded space. So it's low power computer vision. It is the ARM Mali C55. This is great. This is going to be used for things like robotics. It might be popping into the smart home. You could see it in drones. And all of this is better vision at lower power. Yay. I feel like, I wish there's like a whole lot more information to say about this. I mean, you can get lots of details about it, but the bottom line is we are really trying to consume as little power at the edge, IoT devices, battery powered, that sort of thing, as possible, but we really want to get as much performance out of them as possible. And that's what this is. So, yay. I think that's about all the news for this week. But now it is time for the Internet of Things podcast hotline. This is the segment of the show where we hear from you. Y'all can call us at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win an Eve water controller. And this is a device that you basically plug your water hose into, and then you can set a timer and remotely control it. This is great for watering your garden. If you have an integrated sprinkler system, this may not be for you, but for anybody who doesn't have one, this is a great thing to have.
Yeah, it's the Eve Aqua, and I had tested it last fall. Very nice device.
Yeah, and I guess if you're not keen on the Eve, I can send you an Orbit one, but Eve will eventually become Matter. Their devices will become Matter capable. So I think it's still a good option for everybody, but we'll see. So remember, if you would like to win, give us a call at 512-623-7424. And all right, this week, our caller has a question about moving. Let's hear it.
Hi, Kevin and Stacey. This is Joel from Phoenix. I am moving shortly and leaving behind a video doorbell, thermostat, switches, and water controller. Wanting to know the best way to leave them and leave instructions for the new owners so they can connect them to their own accounts. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, I'm going to start, even though you've actually been through this more times than I have, Stacey, because I have to say, Joel, why are you moving from Phoenix? And please tell me you're staying like in the area. It's just beautiful there. Scottsdale, baby, Scottsdale. Ugh. I've done this before, but most of my gear was easy to take with me. So, Stacey, you're probably better equipped to handle this.
Yes, because I moved, let's see, now it's 3 years ago, and I did a very formal move and I had lots of devices. So the first thing I did, start as soon as you can. That's the first part. This is not something you want to do last minute. I started like 3 months ahead of time. And the first thing I did, I was deciding what should convey with the house. Because remember, if you show a house with like a Nest thermostat, that means the Nest thermostat comes with the house.
Yep.
Same with like your Lutron light switches. And basically what I found was anything that was already installed in the home, I left in the home.
Like hardwired, you mean?
Yeah, like hardwired. So the thermostat stayed, the light switches stayed, the actually garage door opener stayed, believe it or not. And so did my Amazon connected faucet. That all stayed. So once I decided that, anything that wasn't going to stay, oh, the doorbell also stayed, actually. Anything that was going to stay, I created a list, and then I worked from that list to authorize everything. So that meant I went into the account and I said, hey, this device is no longer associated with my account. And then in some cases, I deleted the account because I didn't know if I was going to continue on with like a Nest thermostat. I might go with a different one next time. And I actually wrote all that down because I wanted to, I didn't write it down. I created Google Docs. And in that, I noted which had been deauthenticated and deauthorized, disassociated with my account, as it were. And every single device has this capability now. If it doesn't, you should just take it out because it's bad. Just don't do that. And then the other thing I did, and this is why I kept a spreadsheet, is I created a link to a how-to page in that spreadsheet. And then I basically had a manual for people. And I then deleted my like personal notes accounts. And then I just had a list of the devices that were in the home that conveyed with the home and an easy link to tell them how to access it or use it if they wanted to.
Right. Get the app, how to set it up, and so on. I mean, I don't think you need to walk them through everything. I think pointing them to a how-to and the app, because they're going to have to create accounts, and all that information is available from the manufacturers who made the devices, quite honestly. And
yes. And I will say, so this is depending on your house and depending on the buyer. My buyer actually did not care one whit about any of this stuff. And my realtor was like, some of this stuff is cool. Most of it, no one's going to care about. And he was right. A lot of the people, we did sell our house super fast, but the person who eventually bought it actually just brought in their own CEDIA person. They were like, I have a CEDIA person and they'll just come in and fix everything for me. I don't even think they ended up keeping all of the stuff. They just redid it. Not everyone's going to have that experience, but ultimately, I don't think it added to the value of the house, is something else I'll add.
I mean, I still think you should do everything that Stacy said. I would do the exact same thing. But from a buyer's perspective, I'm also thinking, do I trust that this device that they say that the owner says they've wiped out and cleaned and everything, would they trust that that was actually happening? Some people might feel that, the old owner could spy on the house through this. So I'm not going to use it. So don't be surprised if they don't use it, but at least do the right thing. Certainly deauthorize, remove it from your home app, whatever app you're using, and give the instructions. I just think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it doesn't take that much time. It's a little bit of forethought, and you obviously do have to, go in and do the deauthentication, but that's not going to take forever.
Give that chore to the kids or do what I do. And
No, you need to make sure you do it.
Hire an intern,
All right, so good luck on your move, Joel, and hope this helps you.
And I hope where you live doesn't have hammering like Stacy's note.
We're almost done. So remember, if you'd like to give us a call, we're at 512-623-7424, and you will be entered to win the Eve Aqua hose controller device. And that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, who is Fabio Violante, who is the CEO of Arduino, and he's going to talk about Arduino's move from DIY into industrial and the $32 million it raised this week to help it do so. But first, a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Nordic Semiconductor. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Nordic Semiconductor, and I have Kjetil Hofsted from Nordic here with me. So why don't you tell me first, who is Nordic Semiconductor?
So Nordic Semiconductor is the world-leading provider of ultra-low power wireless solution. With approximately 2 million chips produced each day, you are probably no more than a few meters away from Nordic technology. For Nordic, this journey started a long time ago with wireless game controllers, keyboard and mice. They've now developed into what we today call the Internet of Things, with billions of connected devices and applications. Today, Nordic is inside everything from smart home devices, health monitoring, asset tracking, industrial automation, sports equipment. In fact, almost all those things that can connect to your phone or to the internet. Thanks to IoT, we now have new ways of living smarter lives, managing critical infrastructure, and tracking and monitoring health.
Okay, but what exactly does Nordic do? What is it that you provide in the IoT space?
Nordic provide the chips that are the brain and voices behind all those everyday connected products you depend on and love to use. We develop multi-protocol devices and a vast range of supporting software and tools to build amazing cutting-edge wireless products with technologies such as Bluetooth Low Energy, Zigbee, Thread, Matter, Narrowband IoT, LTM, and now recently also Wi-Fi. We are also growing our investments into power management and cloud services. We partner with world-class manufacturing and distribution partners to bring this technology to our customers. And our mission is to excite all the developers out there and provide everything necessary for anyone to build great, secure, connectable products at the absolute max of what is technologically possible.
But how are you supposed to make that happen? Doesn't everyone say that? So how is Nordic really different?
We take pride in delivering a complete developer experience by offering the best possible product support, but at the same time create products that are easy to implement. Our DNA has always been in ultra-low power, so when we make products that is optimized for various different applications, it always with ultra-low power and long battery life in mind. But we're not only about connectivity. In addition to the great radio, our wireless SoC comes with application processor and enough peripherals so they can work as a single chip solution for anything from small simple beacon products to advanced wearables. Since we have developers in mind with everything we do, we take great pride in providing a full suite of tools for development and a unified software, our NRF Connect SDK, that works across our connectivity portfolio.
Oof, that's a lot. So where do we find out more about Nordic Semiconductor?
Nordic's head office is based in Norway, but our reach is global with sales and support offices across the globe. Go to nordicsemi.com to find out more about Nordic Semiconductor and get started with your development today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Fabio Violante, who is the CEO of Arduino. Hello, Fabio. How are you today?
Hello, Stacy. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I am really excited to talk to you, and I am doing all right. So, we've got some big news on the Arduino front. Y'all have just raised a round of funding. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, we just closed our round B funding for 30 million euros, and it's an important step in our history.
All right, so that is 32 million in US dollars. That is a lot of money, and Arduino's been around for a long time, so this is exciting. What do you plan to do with this funding?
So the Arduino story is pretty long, but Arduino restarted a few years ago. We did a lot of innovation. We moved from simple microcontroller to connected products. And now we are developing more sophisticated technology, transforming Arduino in what we consider the Arduino platform. So there is a lot of hardware, but there is also a lot of cloud services, firmware, content. So what we plan to do with the funding is basically comply with our mission of making technology accessible and easy to use for everyone, especially enabling enterprise to use and to benefit from the Arduino technology to introduce IoT and AI into a production level. So what we're planning to do with this funding is basically work on one side on our research and development to make more professional products, more sophisticated products. But we are also trying to do a lot of work when it comes to the content, and also to let people know that Arduino can be a partner for enterprise application.
Okay, that is a tall order. So we'll get to some of the stuff that you could do for the enterprise, but let's just go back for a brief history of Arduino, which it has a messy history from a company and project side. But basically, Arduino started out as a really easy way you got a microcontroller and a way to connect LEDs, servos, it was an easy way to hack together stuff. And that's what it had been for quite some time. And then it got a little bit more complicated. We started adding different shields to the Arduinos for like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and there were a lot of fun things you could do there. And then about a year and a half ago, y'all actually launched an industrial line of Arduinos. Can you talk about the shift from a DIY maker to deciding to go into the enterprise?
Yeah, so when we started looking at the ways Arduino was used by the millions of users that we have in our community, we came to a crazy realization. So we realized that really a ton of companies, in the hundreds of thousands of companies, were using from the simplest to the most complicated Arduino products as a important prototyping tool for rapid prototyping of complex application also in the enterprise world. And we noticed companies of any kind of size, from Apple to Coca-Cola to the small, medium businesses across the globe. And in many cases, these products were also used in production, for example, for developing test equipment for mechatronics application and things like that. So we came up with the idea of better supporting these customers by designing an entire stack of products, not only hardware, but also the companion firmware, the libraries, and the accessories for these products to support more enterprise use cases. So scaling from prototyping to production without disrupting the continuity. So providing a continuous flow for customers that can start with a prototype and then go to scaling and mass production.
So let's dig into that, because yes, prototyping is very different from going into scale. I'm curious what these companies were using it for. Were they prototyping and then trying to find another chip to actually build the finished product and scale it out? And that's kind of the job that you wanted to take over?
We have all the types of customers. In some cases, the customer has the ability in-house to design their own hardware. So Arduino was used at the very beginning to do the first initial idea testing and check on the validity of the idea. And then they have an internal department. They can, of course, design a custom device, a custom board, a custom electronics. In some other cases, when there is no internal research and development advanced capability, not only on the hardware side but also on the firmware side, what we thought was to provide tools that can be used as Lego blocks to build more sophisticated application without having to design a custom board. So what we're trying to do then is help those companies to approach IoT or connected products without having to invest a ton of money and energies in sourcing services or having specialized electric engineers that are quite complex to find today. And we found a lot of interest from this point of view.
Yeah, I imagine it is very hard to build an IoT product, as countless companies have discovered. Let's talk about some of the building blocks. Obviously, Arduino started with being a hardware brain building block, right? And adding on to that. And on the software side, what are some of the components that y'all have added?
Yeah, from the software point of view, first of all, we made the Arduino environment more robust by layering the Arduino framework and APIs on top of a real-time operating system. So this means that the ground is very, very robust now. And we have been also working on some of the most important libraries to solve a typical enterprise problem. For example, connecting the field bus like Modbus and things like that. So providing tools to support this type of use cases. On the more advanced side, what we have been doing was a number of partnerships related to AI application. Again, quite complex topics to approach from the very beginning, but encapsulating interesting application within Arduino libraries and with the different partnership that we have made. We made it possible for people, for example, to do image recognition on microcontroller or signal processing on microcontroller without having to know all the details about how the algorithm works. The other thing that we have done, and is today available for makers, and we are expanding this to enterprise, is also to provide the other side of the equation, so the cloud side of the equation, because the IoT, as you know, by running probably the most popular platform on the market for information about IoT, the cloud side is quite complex as well, because the approach has always been the typical engineer approach. So you know everything, you start from scratch and start building byte by byte your application, starting from protocols. Now, when it comes to IoT, security is very, very important. For example, the connection is very important, different types of connection. So what we have been doing from the software side is to provide a cloud platform that we have been designing to be a low-code platform, where we use a lot of code generation to simplify the approach to developing an IoT device. This is very important because people can focus on what is the application they are trying to implement rather than on how technically the microcontroller is connecting securely to the cloud and things like that. So we created what we call a digital twin that is very accessible in the cloud, can be edited through drag and drop. We generate the code that goes on the boards, but also we help people generate all the dashboards and all the APIs to access the data and manipulate the data.
Okay, given that you're working with so many different companies and at the earliest stages of IoT projects usually, can you talk about what clouds you're seeing as popular, what messaging protocols, what connectivity options, like what are people choosing today? And I don't know how that's changed over time.
So there is regarding the cloud, let's say the cloud services. Of course, it really depends on type of company. Of course, there are the big players like Microsoft and AWS that, of course, are playing an important role on the market. And there is a lot of fragmentation of specialized cloud. Some of them are very proprietary. Some other are a little bit more open. And in terms of protocols, of course, we see a plethora of protocols with MQTT still quite popular, even though with the new connectivity technology, especially for long range, low power, we see also more streamlined, let's say, protocol used by people. As you know, as Arduino, we try to support the standards, sometimes to contribute to the standards, contribute with pieces and parts of code that can be used by the community, improved also from all the point of view. So it's a very fragmented market. So far, we implemented the MQTT stack with a lot of security on that, and we also have an implementation in partnership with the Things Network for LoRa. but we also have cellular devices that are connected through 3G protocol up to now, and also with long-range technology like CAT-M and narrowband IoT. I think the adoption of the, let's say, low-power, long-range technology has been a little bit slower compared to even our expectation. But right now, we see a lot of movement there. And also LoRa. LoRa is becoming, let's say, the Wi-Fi of the IoT. So we see an uptake in LoRa as well.
Okay, so let's talk about making Arduinos smarter, because for the longest time, again, I distinguish between Arduino and things like a Pi is a mini computer, and Arduino is a thing that controls sensors and motors and things. But then y'all added a microprocessor for your industrial and enterprise focused boards. So I'd love to hear kind of the logic and thinking that went into that.
You're right, Stacy. The point is that Arduino is known for microcontroller, especially when it comes to real-time application, to real-time application and control application. So, but maybe you remember a product called Yun that in the past was an important product for Arduino. That was the first attempt at combining a microcontroller with a microprocessor. In that case, we were using a microprocessor that was coming from, let's say, the router industry, the gateway industry. And it was quite successful because basically we were providing a mechanism for making the microprocessor talk to the microcontroller, so people could develop application that had a part of the application that was dialing with the cloud and dialing with and connecting with more sophisticated constructs on the cloud side while keeping the real-time aspect. With the recent development we made in Pro, so we launched a product called Portenta X8. We tried to put the best of the technology that we have today available on both worlds. So on one side, on the microcontroller, we have a dual-core microcontroller, Cortex-M4 and M7, that is a ST Microelectronics microcontroller, H7. And on the other side, we have a quad-core microprocessor. The two parts of the device can talk to each other with multiple communication mechanism, very reliable mechanism, and this allow the users to take advantage of both worlds. So it's quite important because today, especially on the enterprise side, there is a lot of knowledge when it comes to developing Linux application, especially as containers. And on the other side, there is a need for high-speed control. So we brought the two worlds together into this product. And on top of that, of course, as we do for all the connected products, we took security quite seriously. So we also package a Linux distribution that we developed in collaboration with Foundries.io, that is an expert on this topic. And we provide the ability to do device management, security management, container management together with the approach. Again, the main evolution that we are trying to push is for Arduino moving from, let's say, a device to a platform that can be used reliably in production.
So this puts you directly in contention with, I'm going to say, Raspberry Pi from a prototyping ability, but there are actually a lot of what I think of as kind of prototyping boards out there for companies in the IoT, depending on your use case. So you might use NVIDIA Jetson if you're going to build an AI application, if you're going to build a connected dishwasher. So what is the sweet spot for Arduino?
Yeah, absolutely. So from this point of view, when you look at the way our hybrid device is designed, it is really designed having a production use case in mind, an industrial production use case in mind. This means higher temperature range, not only on the microprocessor, but also on all the components that are on the board, as well as the security aspect that is quite important. So on this product, we provide hardware security. We have certification, the PSA certification from ARM. So it's a different class of devices. So we are not trying to compete with the cheapest possible microprocessor on the market, but we are trying to provide something that is robust, that can be easily put into a machine or as a product to retrofit a process and send data to a cloud without having to put a lot of heaters, so heating, cooling devices and things like that. So it's just a device that really works in harsh condition in the enterprise world, and it's also very secure. So physically, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to tamper this kind of devices. We try to select components that have a reasonable longevity and provide also options. As you know, in electronics right now, it's quite complex story when it comes to components. But this product have been designed with products that have a certain level of longevity and are part of families of products that have assurance from the vendors about the availability of these products or equivalent functionally or being compatible equivalents for the future.
And what about use cases?
Yeah, so when it comes to use cases, there are multiple use cases. So every time there is a control part that needs to be combined with a higher level processing capability, this is a sweet spot for us. For example, again, robotics, AGV, mechatronics, industrial bus, gateways. So all these are very interesting applications where there is a control part, for example, a motor control. Also, there is this area of quite interesting, for example, of non-regulated biomedical devices. We saw a lot of interest there as well. There is a ton of application that I personally was not so aware, and we are receiving a lot of demand from this type of industry.
Yeah, and that'll actually tie into the security angle that you've kind of focused on with Foundries.io and the ARM PSA level security. So that'll be really good. And your cloud will also allow people to branch out into other clouds like Azure or AWS, yes?
So today, interoperability is a must because you create this kind of real cloud of services, and it's important to interoperate with a third party. For example, we support Node-RED as well, so also the hosted versions of Node-RED, etc. But we see a very huge number of applications that are multi-cloud today, so we have to support that as well.
I like that. It's the real cloud. Forget hybrid cloud. It's just the cloudy cloud. Final question for you. What are you most excited about with your hardware platform? Like, what use cases are you most excited about?
So I'm really excited for multiple reasons. On one side, of course, microcontroller, microprocessor, we talked about the software, the connectivity, but we don't have to forget also how important are becoming sensors in the picture. So we are working quite extensively also in providing devices that brings to the users at a very accessible price point or form factor or energy consumption, interesting sensing capability. And what we are trying to do right now is to provide also intelligence that can run on the device itself. I don't know if you had the chance to have a look at what we call the NICLA family in the Pro space. So these are tiny devices the size of a post stamp that have the top-notch sensors from multiple brands, and they are combined with microcontrollers. So you can run tiny machine learning algorithms locally to detect some patterns or to do image recognition or sound recognition on the device, and then just trigger something in the cloud. An example of these, for example, is the insect traps. So there is a lot of companies that are helping farmers across the globe to detect insect quite early. So having this edge capability of detecting the insect from the sound and then taking a picture of the insect and then decide whether it is necessary or not to use pesticide or things like that allows also to reduce the impact on the environment. So I'm very excited about these new applications, and what we're trying to do really is to provide the tool set for creative people, as we did for makers, now bringing the same kind of approach to the creativity of enterprise people without having to have a PhD from MIT, with all the due respect. So I also have a PhD not from MIT, from Politecnico di Milano University in Italy, but it is really not needed today if we do things right. So for us, it's really exciting. It's also a source of complexity because we have not only to make stuff, but we have to make them simple.
Yes, it's always hard to make things easy, but as someone without a double E or a PhD from MIT or any place, I appreciate that. All right, Fabio, thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
Thank you, Stacy. It was really a great opportunity for us.
And that concludes this week's episode of the Internet of Things podcast. Please join us next Thursday and don't forget to subscribe. And if you can't get enough IoT news, I would love for you to sign up at www.stacyoniot.com for our weekly IoT newsletter, where we explain all kinds of things that we don't even get to on the show. Once again, thank you for listening and please subscribe.